Well,
Hello.
that's my creepy quotient for the day. Thank you.
That's all right. I'm going to buy you that DVD for Christmas next year.
Oh, well, thank you.
No, actually, with a bit of luck, you'll be able to come over next Christmas. We'll actually have a binge and watch the entire
Who
3
knows?
hours. Sorry?
Who knows? Who knows?
I tell you what, you'll probably find it more disturbing than watching The Thing.
I've read up on it. I've read up on it on Wikipedia. I already find it more disturbing than The Thing.
It is very disturbing. Anyway, hello everybody. Welcome to an interesting modelling company pop-up live. Now, this is going to be a bit different this afternoon. This is going to be Workbench Wars, because we're going to be broadcasting from our workbenches here and just getting on with things essentially and chatting, reading the comments and fielding questions or comments or observations from yourselves, and that's it. It's honestly it is not going to be a structured show in any form, not that our shows are usually structured anyway, but we're just going to be building models and chatting and talking to you and talking to each other and ignoring each other, and that's it.
And throwing into sharp relief how chaotic our modelling is.
Yes, yeah. Although I'm trying to be a bit more organised here at the moment, and in fact, before we go any further. Is it further or farther? Further. Okay.
You're the one with the B-Tech. You tell me.
No, that's a B-Tech in graphic design, mate. From the Western School of Art. So, all things are relative. Apologies to everybody. Unfortunately, I'm not shooting from my Panasonic because rookie error, schoolboy error. I haven't got the right cable for it at the moment.
How long have you had it in the house?
I went about a week actually, but I've only just started kind of having a look at it. So, all right.
I'm not judging. Yeah, I am.
You are.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I will be this afternoon. I'll be painting my SAS Bushmaster, which I've already primed in black with that's not the right stuff. That's Mr. Surface of Mahogany. I primed it in black with a can of Mr. Surfacer Finishing Surfacer 1500 black. And why did you paint it black? For the simple reason that apparently the interiors in these are mostly black anyway. And frankly, there isn't
the hoi polloi want in. The hoi polloi want in.
Oh, the hoi polloi want in. Well, he can come in. All you got to do is press the button. Essentially, I mean that is your entire interior for this kit. I'm trying to turn over a new modelling leaf here, whereby I could have gone in there and painted it and weathered it and been very, very clever. But the thing is, A, that's not what this model is about. And B, really, what are you going to see of that interior once I've actually put the windows in and everything? So I'm trying to be a little bit more mercenary. Is that the word? Ergonomic?
Organised?
Practical?
Streamlined?
Practical. I think practical, yeah. So we're going to paint that this afternoon. What are you working on, Drew?
I'm still going through the Tomcat bit by bit. I've actually started adding some varnish, some final varnish to some areas like the wings here. So that's given a coat of VMS satin, which gives this it's beautiful, isn't it? The finish.
Mm-hmm.
It's just absolutely,
yes. It's
just absolutely amazing. The finish, just exactly what you want. Look at that, flat with just catches of light a little bit. In fact, I'm down to the last. I'm down to the last dregs of this bottle. Look.
I'll tell you what. If you order,
I have 2 more bottles, so we're all right.
Right, the next order you do, order me extra, and we'll sort it all out because I've got some Christmas presents for you here. So
But yeah, these are the obviously the massively thick and unusual Tamiya decals.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Which
I also like the fact that people are really impressed with those scuff marks you did on the wing there.
I never suggested I done them. Well, I mean, the scuff marks, they still need some more They will need some more work to sort of blend them in with some oils and the like, because this is really stage one of the weathering process, if you like. The matte varnish is on. I masked off the wingtip lights before I sprayed the matte varnish on, just with a little bit of masking fluid. And yeah, as you can see, it's actually showing up the weathering quite nicely, I think.
It is. We're joined from the isolation ward by David, who's in COVID jail.
Morning, evening, afternoon, whatever.
Afternoon.
Going by where we've got people from all over the world, Spence, all of the above.
Oh. Yes, indeed. Well,
That's all bases covered.
I think Mr. Weir is watching us from urban, or shall I say, rural Australia somewhere. So
it's gone midnight there, so he's already in New Year's Eve. This man is from the future.
Yeah.
From the future.
From the future. Terrifying stuff.
Listen to the sound of
how are you, Spence? How are you feeling?
I have to say, not great, but not sort of. It's not unbearable, but it's just sort of woolly and not really kind of.
5 days of the year for me. Yeah.
Well, it's sort of like when you first get up in the morning and everything aches and you can't quite get everything to work properly and your head's
every day of the week.
Yeah, it's if you imagine, it's kind of like that.
So what you're saying is it's much like being in your 50s, isn't it?
It sort of is. Yes, it sort of. Listen, I don't want to make light of it.
No.
I don't feel great, I have to say, but certainly I don't feel sort of horrible.
Liz is being terribly sympathetic, we noticed.
Yes. Did you see what she posted earlier?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I saw a scroll past and I went, did Liz put that out there? And I went back and went, oh, she did.
She thinks
Get well soon. I don't have time for your nonsense.
I have to say, she thinks she's very funny, which is obviously not the case unless you're in Liz's head. Although I'm sure everybody else chuckled to themselves when they saw that. But I'm sort of trying to keep out of the way. Really, it's a bit difficult. And obviously she's obviously got a test regularly because she's going back to the classroom next week, and obviously she doesn't really want to be getting back there and not. So yeah, I don't think it's definitely not something to be taken lightly for sure.
No, absolutely.
But I'm you take it. It's what it is, isn't it? I mean, it couldn't possibly have been any worse timing, really, because we had. It was my birthday on the 28th. On the 29th, we'd been booked as like a gift to us to go to the Coventry game, and then we had a meal beforehand. The whole shooting match that had to be all cancelled, and then obviously sort of getting through this. It's New Year's Eve. Not that we have anything planned for that. We were supposed to be going to the football on Saturday, but now that's been cancelled because of COVID. It's just awful. Shut the world down for like a month.
The thing was, Spence, if you were going to catch it at any point, given that you have been socialising and stuff because of Christmas, it was going to be now, wasn't it?
Well, it kind of is, yeah. And the thing is, but you fill in all the data and everything. I have to say that I mean, I've been sort of keeping up with the reports about COVID testing centres, and there'd been no tests out there. We've got 3 where I live, and it was walking. There was nobody there. I just wandered in and had the test, and then it was back, within sort of about 36 hours and everything. There was no problems at all. I do wonder whether it's the online bookings that are the problem, but certainly getting it as a walk-in test, it's a bit of a snag.
Yeah, I did hit a couple of blips trying to order lateral flow tests a couple of times, but then I'd go back, I'd try about 3 or 4 hours later, bingo, straight through the process, order one. And all I'm doing at the moment is I'm just I'm ordering them once I get down to the last 2 in the test kit.
Yeah,
so it's not doing a toilet.
I think it's very much a hit refresh kind of thing, isn't it? And
yeah, it's that kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, we have them here because Liz obviously needs to test regularly, so we sort of did it, and it was kind of an odd thing, really. I almost sort of did it, out of the blue, and I just thought, and then it was like, oh, okay.
But PCR, that was PCR, wasn't it?
Yeah, I did the LFT first of all, and then went
Yeah.
and had a proper PCR test, which you have to do really when it comes back positive.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that came back. They texted me yesterday morning and said, yes, you are positive. Oh, and by the way, you're in jail now for the next 7 days or something.
But yeah, if you get negative LFTs on days 6 and 7, you can come out of isolation, can't you?
You can, yeah. By that point, I will be so gagging to go out for a pint that I'll just be crawling the walls, I think. But
well, during your enforced isolation, you could be trying lots of new things. You could be trying this because you've not tried this yet, have you?
What is it?
It's VMS satin varnish.
No, I don't try new products. I'm still using One Seal thinned with white spirit.
VMS satin, mate.
VMS
it's
satin.
really nice, isn't it?
Oh, it's beautiful. It's just absolutely incredible stuff.
Get with the 21st century, Grandad. Come on.
Yeah, if it's good enough for Franz Overland, and it's good enough for me.
I'm
going to go and make myself
today from Luddite's Corner.
Yes, I have heard so much about this varnish. I really do think it's got to be certainly worth trying out.
Well, it's got to be worth getting a bottle on it. Get the satin, give it a go, see what you think.
Yeah. It's and certainly because I don't really like. I've spoken about this to you, haven't I, many times? I don't really like flat varnishes. Don't like flat varnishes on models at all. But I do like
that's why. And we're both in agreement with this, and that's why I like that. That's the satin, and it gives that it's matte, but it just catches the light. It's so very, very smooth.
Is it? Did you do your normal trick of just blatting that on and then letting it?
Yeah, you've got it. I mean, you squeeze it from the bottle into the airbrush cup, and you think that's never going to go through the airbrush. It's too thick. Yeah. So you just turn the pressure up and blat it, and walk away and leave it. Wow, don't thin it. Yeah. Don't thin it with anything. So like some people said, oh yeah, if you thin the satin with Mr. Color Leveling Thinner, it gives this lovely, incredibly flat finish. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want an incredibly flat finish.
No.
So I found that messing around by thinning it with anything, if you do desperately want to thin it, use a bit of water or something, but nothing else.
Is that all? Is that all it needs? Is it? You just
spray
water.
I wouldn't start messing around with any. Any lotions and potions, but as much as possible, Spence, it's just make sure you've got one of your brushes with a reasonably sized needle in it that will push stuff through.
Yeah,
and blat it on and walk away. I mean, I'm talking, like I do with most of my matte varnishes. You want to let the varnish do the work, not the method of application.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people mist and dust to give flat finishes, and I'm like, what you end up with is a pebbly or grainy looking finish.
Yeah.
You need to let the actual varnish do the work, not the method of application. So it's just basically blatting it on till it's wet, but before it, obviously you don't want it running, but you need it really, really wet, and then literally just walk away and leave it for an hour and come back and marvel.
So it takes an hour to dry, does it?
You can, I mean, you can dry it with air from the brush, get it touch dry in a minute or two.
Right.
But walk away and leave it.
Yeah,
It's one of those. It's one of those. Walk away and leave it, and let the magic happen.
How do you think it compares to the Winsor & Newton or the
better?
It's better, is it?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've got all the Galerias here. I try any varnish that comes out, any new flat finish that hits the market, I will try, because I'm always hunting for the next good flat coat. And I have to say, in the last 20 years, this is the best flat coat I've found. Full stop. End of story.
Yeah. How resilient is it? I ask that because I found with Vallejo flat varnish, for instance, that even though that feels like it's dry, that's like a 24-hour cure time before I can really work.
Yeah, I haven't had any trouble with it thus far, but I'd be lying if I said I'd heavily abused it.
Yeah.
So I it seems okay to me, but I haven't really. I'm going to do a bit of testing on the Tomcat with using oils and white spirit.
Yeah.
to add some extra weathering effect. So we'll see then. But the thing is, to be honest, Spence, by the time I get to that, those wings were painted at 3 o'clock this morning, actually, because I couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
And I won't be doing any of the weathering till tomorrow. So I've had sort of getting on 36 hours before I even start.
Are you planning on just doing washes on that? Are you, or are you planning to do a sludge wash on it, or just pin?
No, it's all that's all been washed.
You've already done it, have you?
If you have a, I'm going to be changing glasses today a lot. If you have a look, you can see it's already all the.
Okay, yeah, I can see it now. Yeah,
all the panel details been washed. But what I want to do is add, obviously, some oil paint sort of scuffing and dirt and grime and grease and stuff like that. But there's the totally unusable, overly.
I was going to say, what sort of dark magic is that you've used to me as decals and got them to settle down and not look overly thick and all of the things that they're accused of being?
The proper technique.
Yeah.
Is that the trick? Is it to use a? I mean,
it's joking aside, it's what we've always discussed. I use the water as hot as I can get it.
Yeah.
And to the extent I will go backwards and forwards 3 or 4 times in any given decaling session to replenish the hot water to keep it hot. And apart from
I've almost used sub-boiling water.
Yeah. I will sometimes if I'm making a drink, I'll get water straight from the kettle and use it. Yeah. And basically that, and a little dab of Mr. Setter, the white stuff, under the decal, and then leave it for 15-20 minutes. And then if you see anywhere that obviously needs extra help, I use the Tamiya extra strong setting solution. But that's it. And then once it's been given sort of a day to dry, I just went over it with some wet sanded it with a bit of Trizact. And that was it.
That's something else I need to try out as well, that Trizact.
But that's just given because sometimes, no matter how careful you are with large clear areas of decal, you can occasionally get a wrinkle in it, no matter how much. And that's just the Trizact just takes that straight down, straight off, and then you end up with this really, really smooth finish. And like I say, once you varnished it, well, there's I think you'll agree. There's nothing wrong with those. There's nothing wrong with those decals, is there?
No, we've. I don't know if any of us have tried this out yet. We spoke about 6 months ago, didn't we? That we couldn't get any of the of Gunsanyo's Mr. Mark Softer and Setter that because they changed it to the new Neo formulations, haven't they? Have we tried the Neo yet?
I mean, the only stuff I've got here at the moment is the original Mr. Mark Setter, so I don't know about the Neo, but I use that and
Mark Fit,
but that's the super strong.
Yeah, I haven't tried that.
I really wish they'd start importing this Mark Fit,
because these are them, aren't they? These are the newer versions of them.
I've only got the I only have the originals. I don't have the Neos.
Yeah, I've run out of the Mark Softer, but apparently the Neo part is like a new formulation.
It's not quite
slightly different to the original. But I
like to believe it's not quite as aggressive.
Right.
It's not quite as strong, but other than that, I don't think there's a massive amount of difference.
Where did you get the Mark Fit from? Did you buy that?
eBay, eBay, and just waited. I really think that the importer's missing a trick, not importing those sorts of things in the range, because it's just it sort of stops them having a complete modelling system almost.
Yeah.
A complete modelling ecosystem. I'd really like to see them import it. But I've got the strong and this super strong. And this super strong is about all I use now.
Right. How aggressive is it?
Pretty aggressive.
Is it?
Yeah, fairly moderate to severe, shall we say? It's probably If I got a particularly recalcitrant decal, I'll still use the Daco Strong, but they're in the same ballpark.
Yeah,
they really don't mess around.
I have to say that I tried out in the summer. I tried out the Ammo by Mig Jimenez decal setting solutions. I quite like those as well. I thought they were good. They are very vinegary smelling as well.
Yeah, so
those are these ones here.
When they're very vinegary smelling, you're looking at it's an acetic acid, isn't it?
These ones.
So
I guess that these work as like a system the same way as microscale. So you've got sol and set for these ones, but yes. Proper vinegar.
Proper vinegary, like microset used to smell.
It does, yeah. It doesn't anymore, though, does it?
Microset used to smell really vinegary, but that's just it's a really strong acetic acid, isn't it?
That's the one that's the vinegary smell. I think that's your setting solution, and that's your kind of
softener,
wetting agent, for want of a better description. Although it says 1 and 2, so whether it's the other way around, I don't know. All I know with the microscale one is it's blue first and red second, isn't it? And that's the way round.
Yeah, kind of basically that's it. Yeah. I see Jim saying anybody tried Solvaset? Yeah, Jim, I've got bottles and bottles of Solvaset. Somebody sent me a box of 12 of them a few years ago. I sort of gift them off to people and stuff. It's okay, but I don't. It's been sort of for my money. It's been left behind by other stuff now. I certainly wouldn't use Solvaset in preference to the Tamiya or Guns or Microset as Sol for that matter. It works.
Now, talking of ammo with MiG, I'm just going to quickly throw this in because I need to go and get the charger for the MacBook in a second. But what about this then? Red Magma Cement from Ammo of MiG.
It's just another collection. They're just sort of adding dyes, aren't they, to the standard cements, just to make them It's like the Mr. Hobby black cement, isn't it? I've got a couple of bottles of that, and all it does is allows you to see when the cement's gone along a join.
Yeah, I know. I saw it this morning. I think it was Anthony Bird sent the link through to it, and I'll try it. I think it's an interesting idea.
It's good in that if you're using something, you want to see how far along a join the cement's gone. It's great. Yeah. Does it actually add anything to your building of the model? Well, no, not really. But so something doesn't have to do that to be helpful.
No,
I'm slightly concerned by this product, I have to say, not because I necessarily think it's a bad idea, but the dye in it is a concern to me, and how stable that dye is, and whether it would leach through paint.
This is the problem, isn't it? Because I mean, stuff like black and red marker pen is just deadly.
The orange marker pen, unless you get rid of it completely, it will come through all of the paint.
Yeah.
That you put on it.
I did read a complete chemistry explanation as to why that happens, and it's basically the particles in the dye are so much finer than paint that they will just leach through anything you put on top. The red will leach through black.
Yeah,
not unlike as I discovered that if you try pre-shading with the Ammo MiG shaders, is you put a color down and then 5 minutes later it kind of like hello, and you're just like a bit more,
and you put another coat down, and 5 minutes later it's leached through, and it just keeps leaching through. It seems to come up through layer after layer.
When pre-shading became a thing 10, 15 years, 20 years ago, however long it was, there was a little kind of glut of guys who were modeling who were using Sharpies to pre-shade panel lines. And then finding that the ink from the Sharpie was coming through all of their paint layers. So it's very much something that needs to, I think, be done with a degree of caution. I can't help thinking. But I certainly thought it was an intriguing idea. but I would have to be completely confident that it was going to be stable before I'd ever want to use it on a model in anger. Certainly not one deadlined. You imagine painting it in a lighter color and having that leaching through from joints.
Thinking I'll photograph it for the article tomorrow.
Yes.
Coming back tomorrow.
Yeah. That would certainly be something that I would be concerned about. But it's an idea, and yes, I think it's an intriguing idea because it does show you where the paint has, the glue has flowed along a joint. But most of the time, when you're building a model and you flow glues along joints, you can see it just by the reflection that it's gone along there.
Oh yeah.
So I'm not so sure, but ideas are.
I'm kind of neutral. I'm strictly neutral. It's one of those. It's a bit of a problem looking for a solution, or a solution looking for a problem, if you like. But on the other hand, if it's no more expensive than the normal stuff, there's no harm in it. So
yes,
I'm kind of I'm completely ambivalent to it, really.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, it's so I guess I should give you a couple of minutes on this nonsense that I've been working on this morning. Then,
yeah,
we're all doing sort of stuff. Yeah, because I'm locked down until next Monday and can't really do anything, and I'm trying to keep out of Elizabeth's way as much as I can. Although that's very hard because I do like to spend time in her company and annoy her as much as possible. Is that I thought I'd do a build for the next sort of 3 or 4 days or something, and see if I could sort of come up with a model that might be interesting to build and everything. And I sort of scratched my head. I didn't really want to do anything for work. I only wanted to do something for myself. So I came up with the idea of building another Edward P51 Mustang. This boxing. But I'm not going to do one of the kit versions because I've already done one of those. So I'm going to do an F51. This one,
right.
Which is really pretty. Haitian Air Force, Republic of Haiti from 1963. That's when they were still using P51 Mustang. But it's a really pretty kind of scheme. It's overall pale grey. It says similar to light aircraft grey, and I've seen some other builds online where they've created this model and they have used light aircraft grey. I don't suppose anybody's got a Haitian P51D in their garden that they can properly check the colour on this thing, and I couldn't find a huge number of photographs of these. I think somebody said that they only flew like an hour a month or something. They weren't used very often, but it is a pretty scheme. Like, it's sort of red trimmed and everything. And I first saw this in I was looking. I think it might have been in Wings of Fame, actually. I think there was a colour one in there, and I thought, oh, that's a nice colour scheme. Interestingly, what makes this interesting is, apart from the color scheme, which is nice, you don't often see many pale grey Mustangs, is it apparently carried F-86 Sabre tanks. These, as you can see, they're not completely sure where those tanks came from, but they certainly look like the bigger tanks that were carried under F-86 Sabre wings. And the Airfix kit, which I built earlier on this year, has 2 styles of tanks in it, and it includes those bigger tanks. So I have those to use, and it just means scratch building a pylon under each wing, which can't be that difficult. But these are decals that were made by the majestic and frankly
ridiculously talented.
Exactly. That is exactly the phrase we're going to. The ridiculously talented Mike Grant, who frankly makes everybody angry at the thought of just how talented.
Here's an Airfix kit from 1956, looking like it was released a day ago.
Oh, and by the way, it isn't going to look anywhere. It isn't your 21st century Tamiya kit isn't going to look anywhere near as nice. By the way, he's superb, isn't he? And he certainly knows his stuff. And he's produced some lovely decals over the years. And this sheet is really nice. There's a couple of Air National Guard color schemes in this as well, which are these two here, which are rather nice. With kind of lightning.
I do like Air National Guard Mustangs. I do like Air National Guard Mustangs.
They do look nice, don't they? And both overall natural metal, presumably with painted wings again. So I thought I would do that and kind of chart it over the next sort of few days. Not a very complicated build. I've done most of the sub-assembly work on that Edward kit. I don't know if you've built one of these Edward kits, if anybody's built one of these Edward kits.
Yeah, I have.
Out there. It is truly a thing of beauty, isn't it? It really is astonishing piece of work.
It's a fabulous model. It's a fantastic
It is. I mean, just glorious. Although I found, much like Wings kits, if you are off very slightly with your construction, and I mean microscopically off, things don't fit. Like inside the cockpit, if I can show you, fuselage. Inside the cockpit are some, you can see those, the walls here. Those are separate parts. If they are slightly misaligned and one on the other side was marginally out, this floor doesn't slide in properly. So you need to carefully trim it to get it kind of all in. Oddly as well, for an Edward kit, this one was slightly damaged, which was sort of unusual. I've not seen that before in an Edward kit, in that the intake underneath here, the upper edge of that was bent up and needed kind of to be adjusted slightly to get it back into place, but nothing too much. So the cockpit and everything's done on this. It can all be painted, all be put together and all of that kind of thing. And given that this is an overall grey aeroplane, everything can be pretty much put together and done. It should look really nice. The other thing I'm going to do as well is I dug out, alongside the best one and the most recent P51 Mustang, this one here, is I've dug this out as well. So this was
that's the weren't you going to build that a while back?
I have. I started it a while back, so I've sort of dug it out of the loft again. I put it up in the loft, and because I've got stickers from the Edward kit, I thought, rather than, I don't really want to build big beautiful doll. Everybody kind of builds that, don't they? And I don't really like to build what other people have done. So what I thought I would do is use the stickers from the Edward kit and maybe do one of the schemes that are in from this. I quite like this one, I have to say.
Yeah, and green noses look cool, don't they? That kind of true green.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Which kind of goes against what I said a few weeks ago. I probably in this parish, when I said I really don't like green trimmed aeroplanes.
Yeah,
well, I think I might have said that live.
You did. We just ignored it.
Yeah, we knew you'd be along in due course.
I think I muttered something about that, but there are so many. That was the one that I did when I built the kit first of all. Isn't it beautiful? It has to be said. But there are some nice colour schemes in here.
Thing is, you are never going to run out of cool schemes on a Mustang, are you?
No.
You're never going to run out of cool schemes.
And at the risk of enraging P51 Mustang fans, I really, really loathe this colour scheme with those markings on the nose.
I don't loathe it, but it would be far from my first choice.
I just don't think it suits it at all. So that's kind of what I'm planning. And what I've done is I would imagine millions of people have built a monogram Mustang in the same way that millions of people have built a monogram P47. So I sort of dug it out of the loft, and I've glued it together. I've glued chunks of this thing together. And one of the things that I wanted to do with it, because all Mustangs on the ground, the flaps are dropped. They don't stay. I think more often than, I don't know if it's just a thing. Whereas Monogram's kit had the flaps in place. So what I've done is I've cut them away, as you can see, and then I've rebuilt all of the parts.
You've gone full Francois, haven't you?
I have. And then,
yeah, well, I always remember the one that in on plastic wings. He built the Monogram one in on plastic wings, didn't he?
He did. And so then these rebuilt sections then just slot into the, as you can see.
Yeah.
So with a bit of luck today, I'll have all of the sub-assembly work done on the, excuse me while I just quickly wipe my nose. All of the sub-assembly work will be done on the Edward kit, and then I'll clean this up, and then tomorrow I'll paint all of the interiors for both. I have to say, for a kit that's as old as this Monogram P51 is, it fits together remarkably well.
Yeah, a lot of the toolings of that time from Monogram, the simpler stuff, could just clip together.
There's no joint there.
No.
And the detail is really lovely. Speaking of on plastic wings, I went to find my version of On Plastic Wings today, and I don't seem to know where it is, which is causing me a degree of panic.
Well, it caused me a degree of panic when I lost mine a few years ago, and John found a copy and mailed it to me.
So
I found a copy at the Avon IPMS Avon show for £1.
Bargain.
Yeah.
Bargain.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm still fully expecting to pull a chair back at some point in the next few years, and there's my original copy under there.
Well, mine must be around here somewhere, because all of the other books are in here. So the other thing I'm sort of planning on doing with this as well is that I've got because I'm just going to have the cockpit open and everything, so I'm going to use a few seat straps, which I dug out. Some nice P51 seat straps, and also I have here some kind of a collection of like wheels and stuff that I may use on this. I don't really know yet, and also exhausts, just to kind of tart it up a little bit, see how it kind of looks. But overall, I really like this kit. I think it's nice. I paid about £8 for it, I think.
Yeah.
It was a bargain. I don't even know where I got it from. I might have brought it back from the States for pence. But yeah, overall, and also because it's got raised panel lines, making those wings smooth is a lot easier.
Yeah, it's about 2 minutes work, isn't it?
Yeah, than it is on anything else. So that's certainly it. But it's always interesting when you see these older Monogram kits to see how nice they were back in the day when you compare them to what Airfix were creating in the sort of mid-70s in terms of...
It's just what I always loved about the kits of sort of from sort of the late 60s up to the mid 80s of Monogram was the sheer amount of detail they packed into an incredibly simple assembly.
Yeah,
you know, a lot of their cockpit baths came basically essentially as one part with a seat molded in and everything, and they were just incredibly detailed.
Yes, one of the ones I think that the sort of the poster child for that really, and Joe Sacchi was very complimentary about this, was this kit.
Yes,
which he absolutely purred over when it was released in...
I think that is the only Delta Dart I've ever built is that kit.
It's even today, I think it's an extraordinary achievement when you look back at when it was released. And one of the things that he was particularly happy with was the inside of that bay.
Yeah.
And when you look at that and you can kind of see the detail inside there, it is extraordinary to think that was produced using very traditional kind of techniques from back then.
Yeah, that was a draftsman. You know, that was a technical drawing board with a draftsman, and you know, and making masters and using those to pantograph. You know, literally you know, that's where the phrase pantographing something down comes from, isn't it?
It is, yeah, absolutely.
They were done at double size or whatever, so that'll be a 24th scale wooden master, and literally a pantograph machine was used over months by a skilled machinist to route out the tool.
And you look at it now, I think in his review he said something along the lines of how many people realistically can get the best from the detail that's in this kit. I think that was something along the lines of what he said. It's hard to imagine, you know, people with a paintbrush will be able to get And certainly looking at that now, you can understand what he meant by that, because that is a lot of detail, sort of unfortunately hidden because it's on his feet, but once it's on the ground and on its legs and everything. But it is magnificent. Even today, it's magnificent. Raised panel lines and all, and that can be, but the rest of it is beautiful. And the detail actually in Monogram's kit is better than the detail that's in Trumpeter's kit. The only thing that Trumpeter has,
and it's more accurate.
And it's more accurate. Yeah, absolutely.
I always look at the nose on that Trumpeter kit and shudder every time I look at it.
Mm.
The nose on the Delta Dart is so so slender and sort of
Nuanced.
it's not so well nuanced, but it just flows. And Trumpeter managed to completely not catch that in any way, shape, or form. And it just, it's the same with Thunder Chief kits. That nobody has ever got the Thunder Chief nose right. Airfix got it massively bloated, and everybody else, including Monogram and up through Trumpeter and all these people, they've all got the F1OD nose far too slim and lacking the ogive curve of the real thing. And it just, I look at it, and because I love the Thunder Chief and I love all the Century series, but the Thunder Chief is one that still needs a decent kit, I'm afraid, because nobody's ever kitted it well.
Yeah, you certainly. And I was reading. I mentioned the other night, didn't I, that I was reading the Arms and Armour Press book on the A10. I was also reading the Arms and Armour Press on the F105, and there's some great photographs in that. The F105 is an aircraft that I've never built. Well, certainly not to completion. I did the Airfix kit when it first came out as a kid, but haven't done anything to completion. But isn't it a magnificent machine?
It's just absolutely. It's an absolutely amazing machine, and there's a complete film on Amazon Prime about Thunder Chiefs in Vietnam.
Is there
just full of footage and interviews with pilots and stuff about flying the Thunder Chief in Vietnam, because over half the total production run of Thunder Chiefs was lost in Vietnam.
Yeah, it's just, it's kind of extraordinary to
because it bore the brunt of the campaign for a good few years before the Phantom really took over. I mean, the Thunder Chief is one that I think still needs to be done justice.
Yeah, dear Tamia, please can you make?
I mean, do you know what? Any of the modern, Meng. Could be Meng, Kinetic. Edward wouldn't do it, but they could. But any of those people would just do a magnificent job on it.
Yeah, I mean it is. And having I saw a couple while I was away. I saw an early A, I think it is, with the smaller nose.
B model.
And then I saw I think it was a D that was in the Smithsonian. You have no concept of how big that thing is until you stand next to it.
It's absolutely gigantic, isn't it? Yeah. It was 70 odd feet long.
Yeah. Well, apparently it's something like a 1.5 foot shorter than a Catalina or something.
Yeah.
And it only weighs about 3 ounces less than a B-17 Flying Fortress.
Yeah. And you have that massive J75 engine in the back.
Yeah,
it's just a remarkable aeroplane. And like I say, it's one that bore the brunt and has MiG kills as well.
Yeah,
it did kill MiGs.
There was something like, am I right in thinking that there was of the Honors for Valor or Purple Hearts or whatever that were awarded in Vietnam? 2 of them went to pilots, and of those 2 of them were F105 pilots.
I would have to check, but it wouldn't surprise me. They really
right. Medal of Honor or something, or
Medal of Honor.
The American. I guess that's like the sort of the British.
The Victoria Cross.
Victoria Cross. I think that only 2 went to pilots, and I think they were both F105 pilots. But when you watch, I was watching a Vietnam. I think it was the program that's on. It's either on Netflix or on one of those sort of streaming channels, and it was about the 100 missions that they flew in Vietnam, and about how many some of the pilots just lied and said, "No, I haven't done that many," and sort of stayed on. One of which was an F105 pilot who did 200 missions and then died on his final flight into in Vietnam. Extraordinary stories about those machines, and I would love to have seen one fly. God, apparently they were extraordinarily loud as well.
Well, yeah, like I say, you had that big J75 engine in the back, which it shared with the Delta Dart, I think. And apparently the afterburner light up on them was not gentle.
No, I can
It was a huge explosion when the
Yes.
afterburner lit up. But
Yeah.
just absolutely phenomenal aircraft and phenomenal pilots as well.
Yeah.
Phenomenal
Just,
pilots.
yeah, it just extraordinary, really.
I mean, I've
The
been spending a
bravery, I
lot of
can't
time.
even. Yeah.
I've been spending a lot of time in the last few months listening to a lot of audio books, and I've just finished. I'd listened to Bomber Command by Max Hastings, and I've just finished listening to Masters of the Air about the essentially the 8th Air Force's bombing campaign, and it is unbelievably heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
Um,
I've been catching a few bits and pieces of that. One of them was a program about RAF Bomber Command and about the younger pilots, and then there was another one, and it was about Memphis Belle and about Memphis Belle going back home, and about the crews, the pilots and the crews, and all of that sort of stuff. And
the thing
the
is, when they say
condition.
that, when they say that there was some like an 8 to 10% fatality rate in the US 8th Air Force, you kind of think, oh, that doesn't sound that high, but that's over the entire manning of the 8th Air Force. So 95% of people in the 8th Air Force never flew a mission because they were on the ground.
Yeah.
They were the support services. Your chances of surviving as a pilot or an air crewman in 1943 were basically zero.
Yeah. Well, it was
the only higher mortality rate was in the U-boat service.
Yeah, that's what they were saying about that with the Memphis Belle. They were saying for anybody to get to was it 30 missions? I think it was.
It's 25 was the initial, and then it went up to 30, and then 35.
The chances of getting to that point was something like 60%. And then I read that the mortality rate for British bomber crews was 45% on every single mission they flew. So I mean, you may as well just toss a coin.
Well, they were saying that they there's something I read in one of, I think it was in Bomber Command. They were wondering when how much it took to get to the point where you were taking off operations, and nobody knew because nobody had achieved it yet.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's what I'd heard. Yeah,
it was just, you can't believe just sobering stuff.
And it is, and I think that, you know, for us as, you know, modelers, when we're building this sort of stuff, I always have that in mind. You know, I'm always sort of thinking, you know, we're the idea that we're glorifying that, I don't think's fair. You know, we're kind of
it's kind of it does open your eyes a little bit, because, you know, I know enough about that sort of thing to know what was going on, but when you have it in, well, I say black and white, I've been listening to it on audio, but you know what I mean. Yeah. It just really rams it home that, you know, a lot of guys in the US Army Air Force, they joined because they didn't want to be infantrymen.
Yeah.
But your chance of surviving as an infantryman was massively higher than it was as aircrew.
I mean, one of the things that came out of that, we talked about conditions that they flew in, minus 45 degrees inside the cockpit of a Lancaster.
Yeah. There are stories and stories in that. Certainly, they don't cover it so much in Bomber Command, but in Masters of the Air, one of the major things the whole way through is the atmospheric conditions they had to contend with the whole time. Yeah. And don't forget that, you know, when these B-17s are flying at 20,000 feet, the waist gun positions were open. There was no perspex over them. They were wide open. You know, and the heated suits didn't work, and you know, they had people coming back. Frostbite on feet and face was one of the biggest causes of attrition in the air war.
One of the stories was that a guy he was in the cockpit of B-17, and he needed to get these controls to work, couldn't get them to do that with his gloves on. So he took a glove off to do that. It was so cold, he fused his hand to the control in the cockpit, and they had to cut his fingers off to get his hand off the controls. It's that kind of thing. You know, it's those sort of stories. And what we're talking about as well is kids who were 18, 19, 20. That's the thing that really comes.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I think that's quite often what we don't really appreciate is that, you know, Guy Gibson was 23.
Yeah.
When
he looks it as well, doesn't he? You know,
he was 23.
Yeah, he does.
And he was a wing commander who led the Dams raid. It's just you just can't get your head around it, you know. war at that point being requiring that of people so young.
Yeah, it's terrible. Anyway, John, changing the subject because you don't seem to have spoken for about.
Well,
an hour. I feel like I've taken over.
No. I'm just gonna at this point say hello to everybody who's tuned in, because I feel you're not being ignored. It's just we've let the conversation stroll on here. So hello to Moz Models, to Darren McGuinness, to Dougal McWoogle, Ian Goldstraw, Vincent Blackburn, Ian Hartup, Douglas Hunter, Shane Weir, Stan Codling, Matthew Walker, Andy King, Andy Goodman, Rob Monfee, Ivan Jensen Taylor, Jim Altegott, Dan Wood, Strolls Down, Jen Wright. Jim also says, love the t-shirts, Jonathan. Yeah. Thank you to my friend Jane for the t-shirt for Christmas. Scrolls down, Neil Gilbourne, Joe Pestaglici, scrolls down, Tim Maunder, Tim Gavalier. We get Tims and Andys turn up in kind of like batches. Patrick Power,
Marauding packs of Timothys.
Yeah, it is it's like a you wait ages for one, and then suddenly two arrive on the timeline in one go. So hello, everybody's tuned in. Like I say, this afternoon. This isn't a show, a proper show. This is literally Workbench Wars this afternoon.
I would just like it to be noted that I have been modelling the whole time.
He has been modelling the whole time. I've been faffing around and making tea. Oh, we'll also say thank you to John Walker for the box of biscuits this year. Absolutely delicious. Thank you. And we just got some comments here. Scrolls down. Jim says, watching all this model building in action has inspired me to start on my latest aircraft project, the Zvezda 48 scale P2 bomber, my first Zvezda kit. Very impressive detail. I think we're all big fans of that, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an amazing kit,
yeah. Patrick Power says only the Lockheed factory had more options than the Monogram P38. Yes, I built the Monogram P38 30 years ago. It's horrible to think that 30 years ago is 1992.
I think 30 years ago that was the 60s, wasn't it?
Well, you know when they say on the news that the latest batch of papers to be released under the 30-year rule, and I think, oh right, what's that? 1958 or something? No, I built the Monogram P38 back then, and I built it as the Night Fighter, but you get standard one, you get a photo recon nose. It's a fantastic kit, it really is. Yes. Anyway, what can I do for you, Mister? What can I do for you, Dave?
Dave. Oh, well, I just sort of didn't want you to think that we were, because me and Mo can basically just shunter for England.
I turned my mic off for the simple reason because I had the compressor going and I needed to make some adjustments. I'm just painting my Bushmaster at the moment. I did manage to come home with completely the wrong paint the other day. I should have got H403 and ended up buying H404. But you know what? If I switched cameras again. See, this is blessed OBS has decided to stop working again. If I switch to the workshop one, do you know what? That's actually pretty much the shade I'm looking for.
That's quite nice colour.
Let's try and get the photograph off the box here.
Way, that stuff is awesome if you haven't got any yet.
You what, sorry?
That stuff is awesome.
There we go. It's got to be kind of like that colorish, and it's a little bit yellowy, a little bit too greeny, but I can live with that.
Yeah, a bit of yellow in that would do good.
It's only the first coat anyway, so and I might switch to something else. What I am going to do is I'm putting this on, and any overspray that goes on the inside, I mean, strictly speaking, I shouldn't worry about it. But if there's massive amounts of overspray, I should just turn it upside down and go back at it with some black. But
yeah,
that's what I'm doing.
See, now
you two carry on.
To panic that I don't have any interior green for this for these flimming Mustangs.
You got any Tamiya XF5 green?
Yeah, I think so.
Just chuck a bunch of yellow in that.
Just chuck it in and
just chuck a load of yellow in that, mate. It'll be fine.
Is that a collection of parts that you don't use, or are you just putting
No,
those?
this is right. This is because I'm building, as you have seen over the last few days, this Tomcat. Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't get, John and I couldn't get it together to get it to me early enough, so I started one of my stock F14As.
Okay.
Just to get a head start, so I could then take the bits out of this specific kit to do it when it turned up.
Right.
So now I've effectively got 4 or 2 Tamiya Tomcat boxes full of loads and loads of bits. And I'm hoping that when I've finished this one, the bits I'll have left will be one complete F14A's worth.
Well, you kind of hope so, don't you?
Yeah, you'd like to think so. So no, it's not. It's certainly not bits that I don't use. It's bits that will be used, but it's like there's just a multitude of bits in here from several different models.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've got this F14A to do, so I'm intrigued to see how yours turns out, because you're doing a different color scheme to me, aren't you? You've obviously done a low vis one.
So I'm doing this one.
I'm going to do the delightful swordsman scheme, I think.
Yeah, well, this is a swordsman.
Yeah, but the one with the black.
You're doing the gold grey one, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah, indeed.
Mainly
because I'm bone idle, and I can't sort of conceive of doing another TPS scheme or low vis scheme with all of that mottling. And when I think about that D that I did,
that came out all right. I don't think that's too bad, was it?
Yeah, it looks nice. It does look really nice. It's such a brilliant kit. I mean, we keep repeating this, really. 48 scale aircraft kits. There isn't a better one. I don't care what anyone says.
No, I don't think there is.
I
don't think there is.
It's what it is. It's just a brilliant piece of work, really. And it's almost each time you build on, you find something different to make you smile.
Yeah, I mean, it's something you easily forget. Is kind of like the undercarriage on a Tomcat is really quite complicated, and it's broken down quite a lot on this model, but everything just clips straight together. Darren, no, you can't do it because you need some different interior parts. You need the F110 engine parts, which aren't in this kit. So
hang about, let me play catch up on that comment. There we go.
So no, you can't. You'd still need the F14B kit.
Yeah.
To get a head start on that. F14D kit, sorry, I should say, to get a head start on that. So
yeah. And the thing is as well, I'm kind of amazed that you're working on this at the moment when the love of your life is still sitting in a box, because you still haven't done a VF1.
No, well, funnily enough, some of the bits in this box are the beaver tail and stuff for the VF1 aircraft and the Quinta Studios interior stuff. So it's kind of like, shall I go straight on and do the VF1 afterwards? And I'm like, I can't. I've got to do that icebreaker. It's finding there's so much I want to do, and I want to build that bloody Mohawk as well. That clear prop Mohawk, and I've got the Armour Hobby P51B en route at the moment, and models of it have just released the F82 Twin Mustang, which I really badly want to do.
That looks really nice, doesn't it?
It's just you literally can't keep up anymore.
It's a terrible time to be a modeler, quite frankly.
It is, and the other day I keep going back to these Arms and Armour press books, but they are great references. And I was sort of reading one. I've got the Tactical Air Command one. And I've got F-15s to build, Tamiya one, Haskell one, and blah blah blah. But there's a really brilliant photograph in there of an F-15C with CFTs on it. And carrying, and there can't be many photographs of these, carrying multiple ejector racks under each wing and under the fuselage, and a full load of 18 500-pound bombs, which is quite unusual, isn't it?
Well, it's because they initially, one of the major changes on the F-15C was the ability to carry CFTs.
Yeah.
And so about 1979, 1980, they were testing it with CFTs and an air-to-ground load. So it kind of presaged the Strike Eagle by 10 years or more.
And it's got nothing hanging off the sort of I guess that it's on the CFTs. It's hard to tell, but I think they do. It has got the pylons underneath the CFTs, but they're not. There's nothing hung off those, basically, because it never get off damn ground if it had anything else on it.
I mean, the thing is, the early CFTs were called fast packs, and they were quite different in terms of their
structure. They were, so
mounting and stuff. So.
Yeah, I wonder whether or not the ones on that aircraft were similar to the Icelandic ones, where they had the pylons for the Sparrows.
Slightly different, because they had the only pylons they had on them were 4 tangential Sparrow pylons.
Yeah, it's difficult to tell from that photograph what's on there, but I like it. And also, it's
photographs of the Icelandic ones from the Air Tattoo in about 1991. I took on an old 35mm camera.
That's still a favourite colour scheme of mine. I love those Icelandic ones.
Oh yeah.
But this one, from 57th, but this one here is the one that's in the Hasegawa kit is the first tactical training wing. With FF on the tail, and in that photograph, that's what that aircraft is. It was almost a brand new F-15 made in 1981 at the time of the kind of the book, I suppose. But it's unusual, because you often see F-15s obviously with a centerline tank and then just sidewinders and then Sparrows. But this one, to have it with the CFTs and having multiple ejector racks, which F-15s didn't really ever carry after that, and Strike Eagle was not cleared to carry those in the end, was it? It was something that they toyed with on some.
Yeah, no, I mean the very early ones did, and then they moved to the small tangential pylons that they currently.
Yeah, and also it was great to see that photograph, wasn't it? If anybody's sort of catching up with us from the other night, Drew and I were talking about F-15 Strike Eagle prototypes. And we were talking about the spine of that.
Yeah, lo and behold, that's the first prototype.
Yeah.
With just the perfect angle, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Somebody on Twitter had posted a photograph of the F-15A prototype with and it's viewed between the twin tails going forward, and you can see the spine of the aircraft and how it flows over the top of the air brake, which is about 2/3 of the size on a prototype from a stock F-15. So you get that kind of idea of what that would have looked like on the Strike Eagle. So I think Mike Reeves got in touch with us and said the best kit for that is the original Hasegawa Strike Eagle kit, which includes the multiple ejector racks. But even that kit needs to be modified, because it includes
it's a halfway house.
It was, yeah. But I do like that. I like the idea of it. But also, if you were doing any version of 71291, you'd have to modify it, presumably. But you
got to do the spine. You got to make the spine.
So whether or not it's the TF-15A, whether or not it's the Strike Eagle prototype, whether or not any of those, I assume they didn't correct any. They didn't change anything on that air brake.
So no, it was structural, wasn't it? So it was. They couldn't really just take it back, and you'd have had to take the whole nose off and replace the whole center section to change, the shape of that spine and the air brake and stuff. So, as it wasn't a sort of operational aircraft per se, it didn't really matter.
No,
the air brake didn't really matter. It was always going to be landing on runways that were 10 or 15,000 feet long and stuff like that. So,
the other one that we talked about as well was, and I have dug out everything that I need for this now, so I will be working on this at some point. Was the YA10A prototype that I fancy doing with the original 30mm cannon on it, and so I went through some of the ideas that we talked about the other night for that kit. I have to say, that's not an easy conversion from not at all. I thought it was
it's one of those aeroplanes that kept more or less the same shape.
Yeah,
but just about every detail is different.
I mean, it's certainly as far as a sort of an in the round project, it's relatively straightforward. There are certain things that you need to change, but the details that you need to alter from a stock kit make it quite tricky. One of them is the removal of the wing fillet that flows over the top of the main wings. It blends into the fuselage because it basically goes in at a 90-degree angle on the prototype, which it doesn't on any of the A10s, on the later versions. So just doing that is quite tricky, because you have to alter the fuselage, alter the wing, and you have to blend them together and then blend all the detail in. But another one that I found was quite tricky, and maybe you can help me out on this because I couldn't find any photographs. The original 30mm, the gun on the A10 has a bulge that runs underneath the nose. It's like a box, isn't it?
Yeah.
But on the 30mm gun, obviously it's a much smaller weapon. Is that bulge on that aircraft? Because I can't find
it was only a little 20mm M61.
Yeah,
it was a Vulcan. So it just basically fitted entirely inside the fuselage.
So, but did they have the later bulge on the prototype and then just retrofitted it? So do I need to alter the underside of the nose?
Yeah, I think the whole
answer's on a postcard too.
Yeah, the whole underside of the nose needs to be modified as well. I'm afraid.
You see, that's that's really difficult actually, because it sort of flows around all of the gear bay. So, like I say, it's superficially it looks like a very straightforward conversion, but actually there's quite a lot to that. There's a lot more than you might be led to believe. Yeah, indeed. So, John, would you like to put some of these questions?
Yes, I was just looking at YA10s at the moment, and
YA10s.
Yeah, and you are stuffed with that nose, I'm afraid, matey. So
you are, yeah. It's not easy. So the nose needs to be changed on a YA10. The wings need to be changed. Remove that fillet. Tailplanes need to be changed because they were canted at the bottom. They were angled.
Yeah, the vertical tails need to be changed.
Yeah,
I think I'd need to check, but I think the engine pylons need to be changed as well.
Yeah, do you know, with that, I might fudge that a little bit because that would be a massive change, and I'm not sure that it adds a huge amount to it. Because I think I get what you say. From what I can see of the photographs, it almost looks like they're on pylons rather than blended in, if that makes any sense.
Like same as the wing. It's just they literally stick out from the fuselage.
Yeah.
Rather than.
But certainly, and the finish on that, I think I sent you a photograph. The finish on that was really glossy on that prototype. It's
probably 16473, probably ADC grey, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it is pretty, and it looks great with the barber's pole nose. And
I mean, in many ways, it was a concept demonstrator in the same way that the X35 was a concept demonstrator for the F35.
Yeah, you see, that's interesting there actually, because that's a photograph that looks like it's got a bigger gun.
No, that's got the
retrofitted.
That's got the extended nose on it. They were doing tests for gun gas ingestion on that aircraft, and yeah, that's taken quite a lot later, I think.
But what's interesting about that, Drew, is that I'm happy to do a later version, that one there, because I want the barber's pole, whichever version I do. But that might mean I don't need to alter the nose. I don't need to alter the underside of the nose, do I?
I'd have to check, Spence. I don't know if
I don't know.
Because let's change my glasses.
But what's interesting about this picture as well, and I found it the other night, is it's got all the separation cameras for the weaponry under the wings, nose, tail as well. I think.
No, that's still the 20mm. That's still the 20mm. Yeah, I'm sure it is. There's certainly nothing showing on the underside of the nose there in terms of.
It makes the nose look a lot more pointed, doesn't it?
Bear in mind that's also got the strakes look on the leading edge of the wing on the under fuselage. So
what on the underside of the
Yeah, it's also got those strakes.
Yeah, those are in the kit, the Tamiya kit that I'm going to use. Those are in there. Because the Tamiya's kit's actually a bit of a hybrid, isn't it? It's a sort of halfway.
I'm not actually sure which aircraft that is. Can somebody run the serial number on that aircraft? I'm not even sure that's the YA10.
11369 or
369.
369 is the prototype, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And then there's 370, which was very similar.
Yeah, I'd like to get a history of that then, because That's been modified an awful lot from its.
From its original look. But yeah, I think it'll be an interesting model to do. I think was that what that was based on? Was it?
No, I'm just showing that just to annoy you. So
yes, I built that as a kid twice actually.
I will get around. Rob Monfee bought me that kit at Cosford, and I will get around to building it at some stage. Ha ha ha!
That's the sort of kit that makes you wonder what Mike Grant would do with it.
Infinitely better than what I would. I to be honest with you, that I would just build that straight from the box. I wouldn't rescribe it. I would just make sure that it was me personally, just do a neat and tidy job on it, and do it almost as kind of like I'd build it imagining that I was building it for a Matchbox catalog photo shoot. That's
do it. It'd be interesting to see what it looks like.
Yeah.
And the other one that's supposed to be a relatively okay kit, although not very detailed, is the Revell 48 scale kit from back in the day.
Yeah, the only thing I remember about the Revell 48 scale kit was, one, it had an amazing box art for photographic box art because it was the Jaws scheme.
Jaws one, yeah.
And two, as I remember, the fans on the engine are going the wrong way.
Intriguing.
which is completely unimportant and unnoticeable to most people. But unfortunately, I think that mold, I don't know where that mold is now, because after Revell and Monogram sort of, became one, the Monogram tooling from 1986 or so was the only one they used after that.
You can still pick them up though, can't you? I've seen a few on eBay.
I've seen a few knocking around at shows in the second-hand vendors and stuff. So I don't think it would be terribly difficult to pick up.
We should make an agreement that if any of us see that kit, to pick one up, see what it's like if it's not too expensive, because I'd certainly like to see one of those and see what it looks like. But I do remember that it was in that Jaws scheme, which is marvelous, isn't it?
What I remember is that the first 72nd scale kit of the A10 released was a Monogram kit. Oh, look at that. There you go. It was a Monogram kit, and it was I remember being sort of 8 years old and being in the local model shop, and it was £2.35.
Yeah.
Which was a lot of money.
At the risk of denigrating Revell too much, but I'm sure many of us remember back in the late 70s, early 80s. Do you think that is actually Revell's kit on the box, or is that the Tamiya one?
I wouldn't like to say.
I think that's the Revell kit, because I think, didn't the Revell kit predate the Tamiya one?
I don't think it.
We'll find out. I'm just going to go and have a look.
Because they had a thing. Do you remember the 32nd scale F18 Hornet that came out?
Yeah.
I think they had a thing, didn't they, for a while? Scale models used to pick up on it quite a bit. That they weren't reticent when it came to using other people's models for their box art. In a number of cases, I think. And Mr. Saki picked up on this a few times. In a rather sarcastic way for a few of his reviews. But
I will self-correct myself.
At that time, Revell were known for being some of the most mediocre kits out there, though, weren't they?
They were at the time.
I will self-correct myself there. The Tamiya kit came out in 77. The Revell one came out in 79. So
yeah. But I certainly remember reviews of the Revell kit were they, if not glowing, they were relatively positive in terms of the accuracy.
Yeah, I think it got a kind of okay pass.
Yes, yeah, pretty much like the 48 scale F18 Hornet that they did, and the 32nd scale F16 and F14 that they did as well. Cheapest.
The F14's always been held in pretty high regard, actually, hasn't it?
Yeah.
The F14 has always had a relatively speaking, a pretty good ride, I think.
Yeah, and its benefits were that it was fully scribed, which the Tamiya kit wasn't.
Yeah.
So that was kind of interesting.
Remember, at that time, the only other competition was
awful. Have you ever tried to build one?
My brother got one when it was re-released with the Euro 1 scheme, and yeah, I don't remember it being very fondly thought.
The problem is that as a kid and having got that Eschi catalogue from Hamleys in 1978, this and the Tornado and the A7 and the F8 and the what was the other one they did? The F100, especially with these Target box arts, look like the most awesome models ever released in the history of ever.
Oh, I got the Eschi 1978 catalogue, and it was just one of the most thumbed things I ever had because of all these pieces of box art. I mean, that's a great piece of box art.
Yeah, and I remember the reviews in. I've still got the reviews from Airfix magazine at the time, where they're reviewing things like the A7, and they're talking about the Farnborough selection of stores you get with it, and the huge decal sheet, and they were fairly, they were fairly kind of positive about these kits. I mean, again, it's relative to the time they were released. It's very easy for us to look back on them now and go, what were you thinking? Well, you had to look at what else was around at the time. But yeah, it's, I love Eschi, and I want these kits to be better because I'd like to build one, so like at least I can say I've built one of those original Eschi 48 scale kits. But I think in doing so, it would probably tarnish my love of the brand. So,
well, we talked about the F14, to me, an F14 being the best 48 scale aircraft kit ever. I would imagine that the Eschi F100 Super Saver can certainly claim to be one of the worst because it was so terrible.
I don't think I've ever even seen that model.
Yeah, I mean, I think, remember, Jeff Prentice did like a review of available extant F100 kits at the time that the Monoram kit was released in the early 80s. And he described it as being unbuildable. It was so terrible. And not only was it unbuildable, that it was so inaccurate, it was almost as if the designers had wandered into a hangar and done it from memory. It was just terrible. Oddly, though, the A7 that you mentioned, the Corsair, has been recently reissued by Italeri with an absolutely astonishing decal sheet. And you look at the kit now, and you can see what Eschi's kits from the late 70s were like. But then they hit a point where they changed. It was like inaccurate, hard to build, raised panel lines, F1. And it was like,
Jim's just saying he's built the 48 scale Mirage F1, not a bad model as I recall. No, that's second gen Eschi. That's stuff
when
like that.
Boom, and then it happened. And then you started to see the helicopters, didn't you? And the Macchi 326s and all of those kind of came out.
Nice. That was that period from about 1982 to about 1985. That was peak Eschi. That was when they were doing stuff which was world beating.
Well, it's being told in Japan, wasn't it? Most of it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And then the Harrier GR5/AV8B came out, and
it was all downhill from there.
It was, unfortunately. I mean,
it's funny, isn't it, how that happens? It happened with Dragon as well.
Yeah.
And
Matchbox to some extent is that there was some, there were some Matchbox kits. I think so, but you can never say they were great. You can just say they were Matchbox kits. But then you had something like the Meteors, which I remember when the Meteors came out because I bunked off of art college for the afternoon, got to train at Bath. Well, ironically, you'd never guess who was sat on the train with me. It was Alan Bennett. It was. I'm kidding. I was sat opposite Alan Bennett. Anyway, and so I got the Matchbox Meteor, and it's dear old late great Mike McAvoy was enthusiastic.
17,000 of them in one go.
Yeah, but he did say that he found the fact that filler was needed on every single joint. He said he found it rather therapeutic. I didn't. But
that's about as charitable as you can possibly get with something, isn't it?
Yeah, but then the Tornado F3 came out. And it makes the Meteors look like Tamiya Tomcats.
Yeah,
it was just
Keeping up to date with the comments, Lady Jennifer of Wright has just made a comment. Jen, that was the very first Esche kit I ever owned. That kit, I bought it from a local post office, and yeah, I remember the big yellow triangles. But that was the very first one I owned. That remains a major milestone in my life. Funnily enough, can't remember the first Tamiya kit I ever owned.
I can.
What, the first Tamiya kit I owned?
I can tell you why. This is beautifully circular, this is, because Crazy Loca says, think about the stores you could buy that early 80s kits at and how those places have changed. Well, I got my first Tamiya tank kit My first Tamiya kit itself was probably a set of figures from Simper and Sons down the high street. But the first Tamiya tank kit I ever got was the M3 Stuart, of which I've got another one here in the workshop, the original one, which I started building another one a couple of years ago when the new kit came out, because I wanted to do like a comparison. But I remember buying that with my father, Christmas, 79 rather. And that's when I got the Esche catalogue. And I think that Tamiya Stuart came in at about £1.50 because it was like, that was cheap for a 35th scale tank. And also they had that, it was Hamleys at the top of Debenhams in Broadmead. And they had so much Esche stuff there, including the big Kubelwagen kit.
Right.
And everything in there was either that or the figures or the armor stuff or the aircraft with the target box art. And honestly, as Loca says, you know, think about the stores you get at Hamleys at the top of Debenhams. Oh, it was wonderful. Prince August, cast your own soldier kits, Roco mini tanks. This is all stuff you didn't see in beaters down the road. That was good. But yeah, but now not only is that Hamleys long gone, alas, so is the Debenhams.
Obviously ours has gone as well. Yeah.
Jim says, I am guessing that the 48 scale Viking was second generation Esche. It was.
Yes.
It was.
Was that 1981? I think. 1981.
That is a beautiful kit.
It is.
And it still holds up today, actually.
Yeah, it does.
I do believe Mike Reeves, does Mike do new engine pods for it?
No,
not yet. Okay.
He's. I think it was on the to-do list. There were a set available from Sierra Hotel Models or somebody,
right?
But they never seem to really get going.
Okay,
if you like, as an aftermarket manufacturer, they released a few very nice things, but no follow through, mate. No follow through.
No follow through. No. Tony Surridge. I'm just typing in Tony Surridge. I meant to type in Tacom. Tony Surridge says, check out Tacom's new one releases. So good grief. All right, people, hold on to your hats. All right, are you ready for this? Are you ready for this? Because this breaking news. I think when some of you see this, you might be following through.
Get on with it.
Here we go.
Come on.
All right.
Okay. I have to be honest, I'm curiously unmoved.
All right. I'm not. I think that's awesome. I can hear a bit of echo. I'm just turning my volume down a bit. Who am I
I actually think that's kind of cute. It'd be quite small as well, wouldn't it? Nice little kit.
I think that's a fabulous choice.
Yeah.
Yes. Just
see, here's what I love about Tamiya. I've just spent the last 10 minutes building that undercarriage leg, and it just goes click, 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 and it's in. It's just crazily good, isn't it?
I think I told you this story before, but the only thing about that kit which I found to be I wouldn't even call it most difficult. The only thing about that kit which required a little bit more modular input was getting rid of that mold part line, the slide mold line around the rear fuselage. Because
even that's it's only a case of knowing it's there, isn't it?
Yeah, because the number of models that I saw built where they
put a wash on it to highlight it.
Yeah, and it was like, but yeah, And also the mold part line on the canopy. But that was it. I mean, I still, like Drew, I don't even think on the one that I built, I don't think I even joined the nose to the fuselage. I think I just left it as is.
On all of the ones that I built, the only thing that's holding that nose in place are the pallets underneath.
Yeah,
I just slid it on and I don't think I put any glue inside there at all.
Yeah.
I think I just slid it on.
I just ran a little bead of Tamiya white cap back around the inside and just plugged it in.
Philip Jones says Prince August still exists in County Cork, Ireland. Fantastic. I know Chris Ellis, my spiritual modelling godfather. He did a thing in Airfix magazine, Cast Your Own Armies, I think the article was, but that was all about the Prince August range. That's when I kind of got to hear of them, and just reviews in Airfix magazine at the time. And Locus says we had 5 and dimes Woolworths style stores back then, had lots of models in stock. Yeah, I mean, we had obviously we had beaters. What else? I mean, in Bristol, goodness me, we were spoilt for choice. I'm glad to say, though, that Antics in Fairfax Street is the natural evolution of what used to be the Modeller's Den, which was in Fairfax Street. But the Modeller's Den in Fairfax Street was just a little bit farther down. Is that right, Drew? Further or farther in that instance?
I think it's further, but
okay. I thought if you're talking about geological distance, it should be farther.
I will go with the majority view, but I think it's further. But
I think
what did you do on New Year's Eve? I watched 3 Englishmen argue about the use of farther or further, or 2 anyway. But just down from that. But that's when they did the galleries redevelopment in the late 80s. All that kind of got lost. But when you go to Antics and then you go through that tunnel out towards the other end.
Yeah.
Well, the Modeller's Den used to be on that corner there. But yeah, Bath Model Centre as well. But no, Antics still going strong, thankfully. And might even have a trip in there next week, because I suddenly realised, trying to find some H403, that not only do I not have any H403, but I've also whisper it, got some gaps in my Guns Sanyo paint collection here. And also,
which obviously need filling for no reason whatsoever, other than you have gaps.
Yes, and
I wasn't criticising.
Oh, right,
it wasn't a criticism; it was an observation.
Also,
Are you suggesting
I might hang fire
usage from?
Sorry,
is Drew suggesting that there may not be any imminent usage from your?
No.
Gappage? Yes.
Leave polishing the decals.
I think we've stumped him. We've just left him speechless.
Who, John?
Yeah, it's amazing.
I'm frankly,
he's buffering.
He's buffering. Yes.
First of all, I'm plotting your downfall further down the line, farther down the line, one or the other. I'm fact that look, dead soldier. Yeah. So we need to do something about that. I've also still got another biscuit in there to munch away, and also obviously the inevitable consequence of drinking lots of tea is I should be back in a few minutes. So
well, actually, I'm going to leave you guys to it, because I'm going to get back to doing some more work on this here P51. So.
Well, you could do that. You could do it whilst we're live.
I can't focus. I'm not very good at focusing on doing what I need to do while I'm chin wagging. Unfortunately,
you can't focus. Look, I've painted an entire Bushmaster, for goodness sake.
Yeah, I'm not very good at it though.
Incidentally, I've painted an entire Bushmaster using my Fender 183K. That one, which. I don't know how many months we've had that now. Probably 8 months.
Yeah, quite a while.
Still performing flawlessly.
Yeah, it's good little brush, isn't it? How much did we pay for it? £3 or something?
It was something like threepence and a tangerine skin or something. It was.
Did we all buy one, or was it just
Yeah,
a B&B?
yeah, we all got one, a variant. I've got one up there.
A Fender of this.
But frankly, for doing something like this, I don't need a custom micron to do that. He said, throwing that one into the mix, hoping that's going to start an argument. But no, it doesn't.
Wow.
You know, but no. But seriously, for doing something like this, 25 quid Fender airbrush does the job.
I think we made quite a big deal about the Fender airbrushes, didn't we? But I've used it quite a bit over the last 7 or 8 months since we bought it, and I found that modelers often ask the question, I want a cheap airbrush and I want to do this and and have a go at this, and you're almost loath to get involved in those sort of questions, aren't you? For fear that you're going to say the wrong thing. But we were certainly impressed, weren't we? And if, as a beginner years and years ago, we'd had the opportunity to get a Fender airbrush, I think we'd have been delighted with it, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I don't use the Fender is because one of my Iwatas is permanently set up.
Yeah.
So it's just the first thing, it would actually involve me breaking that down and setting the Fender up to use it. So
yeah, my Fenders, both of them are here. Both of them are here on station, so they're always on QRA here. And I mean, what it boils down to is I'm not using it. I'm not using it for anything where I'm pushing it beyond its natural envelope, shall we say? Okay. No. So when it comes to doing fairly kind of like basic to intermediate stuff, I have sprayed camouflage with it. It can tackle it, but in terms of for what a beginner would be expecting to do with an airbrush during their formative time getting used to using one and the kind of things they're doing, nobody's gonna go out and buy their first airbrush and then the next thing is they'll be trying to do complicated Luftwaffe modeling or something like that. So
you say that, but we're seeing a lot of people who apparently do.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is in terms of a beginner's airbrush, in terms of cost, it certainly delivers on cost. I think it delivers on performance. Yes, it's not as finessed as an Iwata, but it's not that far off a basic Iwata airbrush. But it's also reliable.
Yeah, it is really good. Yeah, absolutely.
Going. So
I certainly wouldn't pick a Neo over one of those.
I mean, one of the things as well is that people, when they ask about this stuff, and we're probably preaching to the gallery with people who are watching it at the moment, they're saying, "Oh, get airbrush, get a compressor, and all that sort of stuff." The one thing I guess that if people ask me, what shall I do? You've just got to be prepared to put the time in, because you can have the best airbrush on the planet, and if you're not prepared to put the hours and the hard miles into learning how the thing operates, it isn't going to matter really.
No.
So that would be sort of advice that you would kind of give really with that sort of stuff. But yeah. So it's kind of I think that was one of the better purchases we did. We purchased quite a lot throughout this year of cheap stuff, didn't we? We bought cheap brushes, cheap airbrushes. We bought collections of brushes from Amazon. We bought masking tape, didn't we? That cost like 30p a roll or something. We bought those little sets. We did quite a lot of stuff.
We put our money where our mouth is repeatedly.
Yeah, just to sort of give an idea of what was out there. That's for sure.
And I'm still using that pack of paintbrushes that I got off of Amazon. That pack of whatever it was it half a dozen or something?
Yeah,
I'm still using them, and I am waiting to be disappointed by them. And they are. I think the problem, or not the problem. I think the thing is that compared to say 20 years ago, certainly 30 or 40 years ago, stuff that was kind of like the cheap and cheerful back then certainly was cheap and cheerful. It really was, kind of like a bit grotty, quite frankly. I think some of the stuff that you can get now, certainly the paintbrushes, they are ridiculously cheap for what you're paying for, but they are of a quality which 20 years ago, 30 years ago would have been what people would have termed quality paintbrushes.
Yeah, it's true.
So I think that kind of like that base of what what is usable and what is actually good quality. I think that base has risen now to the stage that, yes, our little £25 friends here, these are as good as what would have been quality airbrushes 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, that Fender would certainly have been a match for a Badger 150 or something, or Badger 150.
Well, let's put it this way: my Fender, both my Fenders are certainly more than a match for the my DeVilbiss Aerograph Super Sprite, whatever it is, for the simple reason that they actually work.
Funnily enough, just before I go, I've dug out my what the heck is the damn airbrush called that you keep mocking? My Aztec. I've dug out my Aztec, and I'm going to use it on a model over the next.
When you say dug it out, do you mean dug it out or dug it up?
No, dug it out, and because I have one of the wooden boxed set metal ones.
Is that before?
And I know you keep mocking the idea, but
I'm not mocking. I'm not knocking. I was just confused when you said airbrush because
every time you mention it, you laugh. Every time I mention it, you laugh. I'm gonna wipe that smile off your wizened old face.
Every time you mock an Aztec airbrush, an angel gets its wings. Attaboy, Clarence.
Can anybody see what I've forgotten?
Question.
What's Drew forgotten? He's forgotten
Paul
something.
Sykes
He's forgotten to put a star on there.
There you go.
Question. Paul Sykes has put a question on.
Oh, go on. Yeah.
Drew.
Oh. Well, sorry, I'm not. I see. I can model and talk, so I haven't even been paying any attention to the comments.
Right. What comment am I supposed to be putting up here?
Paul Sykes has put. I'm not an aircraft modeler, so could you tell me, please? There you go.
Basically exactly that. It helps to blend the edges in a little bit. It kind of breaks the skin on the decal, which helps when you come to final varnishing. And if there are any sort of minor ridges or anything in the decals where it perhaps hasn't settled as well as it might, it smooths it all out and gives you this incredibly smooth finish on your decals to move on from.
Yep, it's a good thing to do. Fellas, I am going to shoot and scoot. I'm going to go and make a cup of tea, and I'm going to go back to that side of the bench.
I'm going to go and put a decal on my Tomcat.
Yeah, I think you need to go and reboot your router because your image quality is come down the pan. Yours has.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's like go and put another shilling in your dial-up modem. I think it's
fine.
So happy cake and coffee day or cake and tea day. Have a nice evening.
What's the time anyway?
Yeah,
I've got to go in a minute anyway because I've got to go and
4:45.
I've got to go around and get fish and chips for Mum. So,
fish and chips.
Fish and chips night with Mum. So,
see, I'd go and get fish and chips, but I'm not allowed out of the house.
No.
Yeah,
we'd stop you if you did. So,
yeah, would you? Is that the police? I believe he's gone to get fish and chips. Can you go and arrest him?
Do you know what? I was talking. I was telling you the other night about my flying lessons in Wales by that fountain.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the same fountain that Simon Pegg throws the coins in during the opening 20-15 minutes of Hot Fuzz because it was on the telly the other night. And I started watching it, and I was sat there, and I was like, ha, ha, ha. And then I saw the fountain, and I was like, right, I'm switching that off.
Click. So, yes. So, thanks very much, guys. Very entertaining afternoon of nonsense, as usual.
Well, look after yourself.
Will do. And,
try and stay out of trouble.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go and take a couple more tablets to even get rid of this headache that I seem to have actually got at the moment. So, see you later, everybody. Take care.
See you later.
See you later.
See you.
Bye. Bye. And then there were two.
Yes. Well, shortly
there'll be one.
Yeah, because I've got to go as well. So.
See.
But I did spend the entire time modelling like we said we would. So.
Yeah. Well, this is. I think we'll do another one of these as and when, whilst the holidays are still on. I mean, if I hadn't done this afternoon, I wouldn't have actually got some paint on this because I would have just been doing something else. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I
mean, as we all used to do on FaceTime, it just gives that opportunity to get like dull stuff, like seam lines on undercarriage legs done while you're chatting and doing other stuff. So,
right, I'm going to let you go solo for 5 minutes, and I'm going to go make another drink. So,
oh, thanks very much.
That's all right. All yours.
I've just noticed I've removed a little bit of paint as well while I was sanding. So what I'm going to do is find the 35237. There we go. So yeah, I've just noticed that while I was sanding, the swordsman marking here, I've just sanded through a little bit of the paint, so it's not a it's not a massive problem. I'll tell you what is a problem though. That looks like a much better 35237 than the one I've been using, which is a shame, but bear in mind, guys, I will try and keep an eye on the comments, but I'm don't be like me, people. Keep your paints better than this.
Oh, good grief. I've come back from the kitchen to see that.
Well, yeah, I'm afraid you have. So,
oh, for goodness sake, that is just. I'm now just going to. Here we go. Look, that's organisation for you, isn't it? Look at that. Ah.
So you're back then?
Yeah, but I'm just waiting for the kettle to boil now. So
oh, right.
And contemplating. Actually, I was contemplating this afternoon because I thought I need to. The wooden flooring in the workshop here. There's 1 or 2 panels now need replacing through wear and tear.
There's 1 or 2 panels that have needed replacing for a decade.
There is that, yes. But in doing so, I thought, well, if I've got to take the floor up in the workshop, I might, because I've got these Clark metal cabinets I've had in here. I've had in both my workshops for nearly 20 years now, and I've got the old desk here, and I'm just looking. I'm thinking if I take the floor up, it would be a good opportunity to just get some new cabinets and things, just redesign the layout of the workshop completely, utterly. So I'm having a think about that. Be my treat for me.
Your little treat to yourself.
My little treat for myself. Well, it just I keep the workbench here in front of the window because obviously that's ideal because you've got natural daylight coming in. It's a south-facing garden, so I'm good for light. But right. I am thinking I'd like to move the spray station over the other side, and also I don't know what I need to do. I'll have a think about it. Let's just have a quick look at see what the comment. Brian Wilton says, Drew, do you know the font for British World War II aircraft? As I want to do my own masks. I can answer that, Brian.
Over to John.
Sorry.
Over to John.
Over to John. The problem you got there is, Brian, there isn't one. It's there is a style that was used during the Second World War, which tended to be a kind of like a squared off style, for which there were kind of like criteria laid down, but it doesn't have a name. I think if you search online, you'll probably find somebody does a World War II RAF font. But the problem you got there is that and I can tell you from professional experience, is so often you're looking at an aeroplane and you suddenly realise that the proportions, the size, the stroke isn't standard.
Yeah,
even
certainly
the
RAF codes on fuselage sides were incredibly variable, weren't they?
Yeah,
Often
even
within the squadron as well. It wasn't like
yeah. Oh God, yeah. You can have two Spitfires from, say, 60, is it 601 squadron? Trying which one it was. But you can have two Spitfires parked next to each other, Battle of Britain era Spitfires, and the DW codes on them, different styles, the corner radiuses of the letters, everything. So I'm just going to have a quick look for you, because there is somebody out there who does a RAF True Type font. I remember there was somebody out there who did do them. Here we go. Oh no, not that website, certainly. I'm not going to give that forum any publicity. Wah, wah.
right.
Yeah, stop there. Here we go.
Leave it, son. Leave it. It's not worth it.
Son, leave it. Try this one, Brian. We have, in fact, I'm just going to share the screen for it. It is, we'll put a link up for it. How many of these you can actually download and use?
Just to get some hot water.
You'll just have to kind of like find out yourself. But there we go. RAF. They do an RAF. So I'm looking at that. RAF, Royal Air Force. Oh, that's the clip style. There we go. Now that's a clip style as well. You want the one that's post-war. Yeah, that's kind of close enough for Second World War. That one there. Yeah, that's fair. That's fairly close enough. But without sitting down and drawing what you specifically need, I think that's going to be your route, really. So there's the link there, but I'm just going to go onto our Facebook page and I'll put the link up there for you. So bear with. Here we go. It's a post called Fonts. And there we go. So give that a go, Brian. Let us know how you get on with that and whether any of them work or not. There seems to be a new page, so I shall download some of them and see what they're like. But yeah, long story short, they don't have a name, and often they don't even match between aircraft to aircraft. So
errant little star and bar here, look.
Yeah, here, Dave. Here we go. Dave nails it. He says various manufacturers and MUs had styles for serial squadron codes depending on the sign writer doing them. Standard font didn't appear until post-war 50. Yep, indeed. And Tim Perry says some of the downloadable RAF fonts are very badly constructed. I find, like you, they really need designing from the ground up. Ian Huntley articles from 456 years ago, and Sam give you the basic proportions. Indeed, my library of World War II code letters was constructed using the Ian Huntley dimensions. That gave me an alphabet, which I rarely use because I'll look at a particular airplane. I'll look at, HNC as a set of code letters, and I'll pull out the ones I've got in my library. Then I realize, well, the stroke width isn't right. And then I realize that actually these ones are slightly narrower than the ones I've already drawn. And then I look at the C's and think, oh, well, the corner radiuses are more rounded, whereas the ones I've drawn are the specified radius. And then you suddenly notice the upward legs of the C's go up further, whereas the ones you've drawn terminate further down. So it's very much on a case-by-case basis.
I was thinking the Ian Huntley column was the most boring column ever produced in scale aircraft modelling, and now it's just like solid gold.
Yeah. What have you done to your microphone, Drew?
Oh, I took it off when I went to get hot water. Sorry.
Oh, that's why. I wonder why it sounded like you were in.
That better?
That's better.
There we go.
There we go. Oh. Yeah, the Ian. I was the same as you. I'd pick up Sam, and I'd be like, first of all, read Tailpiece. Then I'd see what they'd reviewed that month. Then I'd read Alan Hall's editorial, and then I flick through the aircraft in detail, and 9 times out of 10, I wouldn't read the Ian Huntley column.
You go to see if the Ian Huntley column had any pictures in it this month.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, he, bless him, he did tend to fixate on things which, how can we word this diplomatically, almost had practically no modelling application whatsoever. But he also did some solid gold stuff that to this day remains absolutely top class reference. Really good stuff. And so I'm always eternally grateful to him, especially when it comes to things like lettering styles, but also his observations on colours and some of his colour references and things. So yes, it's funny how that's gone from being something which I used to skirt over to something that even to this day I'll go and grab my Sams and look up a particular
because he was nothing if not diligent in his research.
Yes, precisely. So yes, I mean I had to write. Let me just dig it up a second. I will
look, it's got a star on it now.
Well done. And at least it's not that horrible Top Gun star that that Paramount have insisted all the licensed Top Gun kits use. Yeah, I don't understand that either.
You can't trust these people.
Well, even Revell got. Yeah, they got done by that because they had to follow the same style guidelines. It's just, here we go. Here's a little bit of a. It was a little bit of a. I did the obit for on Mike McAvoy for Model Airplane International, and I just said, just pulling it up here, that it was still that Mike's association with the magazine was initially as IPMS liaison before he was given the opportunity to write his now famous tailpiece column, which ran for decades and encapsulated Mike the man and his enthusiasm for the hobby. Those formative years with Alan at the helm, Mike keep doing all the illustrations, Ian Huntley's research columns, and Mike's tailpiece were peak Sam, a core team that were true pioneers. I think that's a fair comment.
Indeed. I don't have any argument with that whatsoever.
No, I mean, it truly was. When Sam came out in 1979, it truly was a groundbreaking magazine.
Just remember, it used to be sort of like the day after you'd got this month's copy, you were just waiting for next month's.
Yeah, precisely. I'm going to go make myself a cup of tea. You can explain to the good people what you're doing there.
Yeah, I'm just adding a little bit of a dark wash to start off weathering the Tomcat nozzles. So I'll have to mask and do some work on the inside shortly. But I just want to add some Tamiya dark brown weathering wash as a first coat. And then we'll let that all dry off. And then we'll look at, I'm only applying it around the rear and letting it flow where it wants. I didn't want any of it to go in the actual nozzle itself. So yeah, this is and yes, both nozzles are fully open because it's in the launch position. So it's going to be with the wings forward, slats and flaps out, nose leg.
And that's the white ceramic heat coating on the inside, isn't it?
Yeah, and start that. So that's going to need more.
Dan Wood wants to know, how did you do the heat staining inside the exhaust, Drew?
The heat staining so far is just lots of coats, a few coats of this. To me as dark brown wash, and then I just soaked a piece of or a cotton bud in white spirit and just basically just went like that around it repeatedly. It's not perfect, but it's a start, shall we say? Like I say, there's more work to be done.
You're doing what I'm doing, which is even though you are putting far more effort and diligence into something which, as a display model, nobody's ever going to look in there.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, I'll only do this once. There won't be any stripping back of this to redo it.
No.
You know, once it's done, it is done, and you know, the fact that it's for a display model doesn't mean I don't want it to be as good as I can get it.
Well, yes, that's what I was saying earlier on about doing this Bushmaster, is that as much as I started to think, well, perhaps I should kind of do something with this interior, not that there's much you can do with this interior, but I mean, if I just flick cameras, there's some molded detail in there. I could have painted the seats, I could have painted the cushions, I could have done some other things, but then again, there's no steering wheel, there's nothing there, and by the time that's actually all buttoned up and the windows are in place, it's just not. It's not going to achieve anything, and it isn't going to. You know, unless it's recorded photographically as part of the construction process, doesn't serve any purpose whatsoever.
No,
no.
I mean, the thing is, I mean, if I was strictly going just for the display aspect, I wouldn't have bothered with all the weathering and stuff, would I?
True, but that's just, that I think
you look at Tamiya's own display models that they use in their publicity, and there's no weathering on them. They're literally just.
I think that's where we have a little bit more leeway. We do want to show the model off to its best advantage.
You want to show what's in the kit, but you also want to show what you can do with what's in the kit.
Show what can be done with the kit.
Yeah, with minimal, you know, without changing the base kit as such.
Yeah, precisely.
I see Tim Perry there talking about the way the fonts are formed. Yeah, Tim, I would never use them anyway. It's so quick to make your own these days when you've got a reasonable grasp of, like, I don't know, Illustrator or Designer or something, or Corel or whatever. It's so quick to make your own these days, isn't it? That I might use them as a basis, as a template to make my own, but I'd still make my own one layer.
Yeah. Then again, Brian, if you're after something specific, let me know what it is, and chances are I could draw them out in 10 minutes, and you can get them back as artwork that you can cut yourself. So
look, I've started painting some men as well.
Good grief! Steady on now.
Yeah,
I'll have less of that. You did go through a phase some years ago where you didn't even bother with any characters. Everything was
on a stick.
Everything was on a stick, including the moon.
Yeah, so we're starting to get there with this. The seats are coming together as well.
Try and say it a bit more enthusiastically. Come on.
Well, it's getting to that stage now where you kind of you want to get it finished. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've been on it for 3 weeks now. I wanted to spend 2 weeks on it, and it's now we're 3 weeks in, and I'm still sort of probably a week at least away from finishing. So you kind of just want to get it done now. So I wanted to get it done before the turn of the year, and that's not going to happen. So hey ho.
Yes, I was hoping to.
Don't get me wrong; it's still fun. I'm still enjoying it, but on the other hand, there's, as we already discussed, there's a host of other projects I really want to be getting along with. So,
talking about the projects, bear with me a second. Uno momento, per favore. This is close to now being completed after a prolonged. And this is that IBG cruiser, which I just through ideas at this, just things I like to try out. Some of it's actually turned out quite nicely. Some of it I just thought, I wouldn't do that again. But fantastic kits, though. I mean, these IBG armor kits are an absolute revelation in 72nd scale, and we're very grateful to Colin at Freight Dog for sending this one along. So this will, as you can see, this just needs some stickers on it, and that's it. It's pretty much done. And yeah, still not sure about that color scheme though. I mean, it is supposed to be British sand and purple, which is how it's described in the color diagram. And I did use the AK real colors, but I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced of my own judgment there.
If I'm blunt, I'm very often not convinced by AK's real colors.
Yes. Some of them are very good, but some of them I'm not
very good.
Yeah, I think that's probably being charitable. But yeah, that's, to be honest with you, that's probably, put the decals on, another coat, that's probably about 30 minutes away from being finished. So yeah, thank you to Colin for that. That was very kind of you, and I'm looking forward to seeing what else IBG are doing coming up in the future. Certainly their Focke-Wulf 190 looks magnificent, doesn't it?
Yes, I'm very, very much looking forward to that.
Oh look, I managed to break the fuel drum off. We'll glue that on later on. I'm just going to do a bit more spraying whilst you're polishing. I haven't done the wheels on this, and I'm just having a think. What was a dangerous thing with me? I'm actually wondering whether that new Tamiya, you know what, that new Tamiya dark brown, light brown rather, the XF93. I think I might spray the wheels with that, and if I like the look of that, I'll give this model a... No, I'm not going to do that. No, change my mind. I'm going to stick to what I've sprayed it with already.
See this, people? Indecisiveness live.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's I could go on the internet and ask people for their opinions. You know, should I use this paint? Should I do this? Should I do this? But I'm just going to run with my instincts here. In fact, we'll have a discussion about that at some other stage when Spencer is with us. This kind of risk-averse culture, I think we can put it that way, which just seems to be stopping people from experimenting and finding out for themselves.
Yes. Well, I've been an ardent commentator on that for quite some time, haven't I?
You have been an ardent commentator on that for some time.
Just come on, people. If you want to know if something works, why don't you try it and tell us?
So my microphone's just going off, so you don't have to keep listening to my compressor talking back to me. For the technical amongst you, my air pressure is at that's about 1.5 bar. So what's that? About 20 psi ish.
Give or take?
Yeah, give or take. And this is about 50-50 Tamiya lacquer thinner retarder type with this Gunsey 404. To be honest with you, it's not scientifically done. I just add thinner and paint until I think it looks the right consistency, and then I start spraying. And if it sounds good,
yeah, it always makes me giggle a bit when people say, "Oh, what pressure and thinning ratio was that?" So I don't know.
I don't know. It's on a paint by paint job by job basis.
And especially we all pretty much all use Mac valve now as well. So most of us use Mac valve, so we wouldn't know anyway.
Yeah, sorry, I missed all that, Drew. My compressor was chugging away.
I'll say because most of us use Mac valves, we don't know anyway.
Well, I haven't got one on this, but I always go by listen to what your airbrush tells you. If it's purring, you're good. This is probably a little bit thinner. I could probably have a slightly thicker mix than what I've got here, but I much prefer to keep it on the thin side and let the lacquer thinner do the heavy lifting. Because what you end up with is a smoother finish. I mean, they're done. That'll do. I've got a little bit of paint left. Actually, I'm just going to carry on. I'm going to carry on putting some yellow on these wheels. Oh, not forgetting that I've got to do the insides as well, because these are rubber tires. There's nothing. What's more realistic on a model kit than real rubber for rubber tires? I'll tell you something. Not real rubber.
Yeah. What's more realistic? Paint.
Weird that. I mean, Oops a daisy. No, I am going to have to put some more paint in this. When I popped up to see my mum yesterday, I took up with me that Italeri Barry Sheen motorbike, the Protar kit. And so whilst what were we watching? I think we managed to get through A Bridge Too Far. So that gives you an idea of how long I was up there kind of putting together this thing. I think it was A Bridge Too Far. Then it was the Glenn Miller story. And exactly. And that's got rubber tires. And I remember thinking to myself, nothing looks more unrealistic on a model than rubber tires that are rubber. It's bizarre. It's one of those weird dichotomies or contradictions, but that's actually quite a fun project, because the brief for that was to not to paint it because it's molded in color. So the finished model has to reflect the fact that the kit is molded in color for people who perhaps just don't want to paint it. So it goes against every instinct I've got, because one is used to painting models. But on the other hand, sometimes it's not a bad thing to break out of
the whole thing out of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, precisely. So it means that I can just glue something together. I'm not have to worry about dealing with seam lines, because I can't. So it's actually quite a cathartic build, that. And I'm keeping it up there so that it means if I it means when I pop up and see my mum, I've got something to work on. So incidentally, you should definitely check out that Emporium on the Dorchester Road, kind of indoor, kind of markety type place.
Where?
It's called the Emporium. It's on the Yeovil to Dorchester Road.
Oh, right. Actually, it's called the Emporium.
It's called the Emporium. And I'll tell you what, the cake there, spectacular. It's very nice. I'm sure I put some pictures up before Christmas when Andy and I went there.
Yeah,
it's about 15, 20 minutes drive from yours, if that. So, yeah, very good. Very, 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 very good place, that.
Right, I need to shoot because I've got to go around, get fish and chips and go around Mum's. So.
Okay, well, I'm going to carry on doing some painting here, and then I will I'll go and do something else. So,
right, thank you all.
When should we do another model off like this then? Another battle of the workbenches?
I don't know, probably New Year's Day.
Yeah, New Year's Day. Yeah, that sounds good to me. Yep.
Okay,
right,
people.
Right. Enjoy your fish and chips.
Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you later.
See you later. Bye. Glad he's gone. Right. Now, I'm just literally going to do these last few bits. order my HDMI adapter for my Panasonic camera, so I can use that next time. Well, I've got to say, the webcam here seems to be doing quite well today. So, and then beyond that, I'm going to try and be a diligent, good lad in the workshop next year, and not overthink projects and just clear them, get them done. I definitely went down a rabbit hole in the second half of 2021 this year, just almost what Spencer was saying about I started competing with myself. I was trying to, some projects, they were turning into things that they were not supposed to be, which is why with this Bushmaster, I'm making a conscious effort to, to just build it as it is and not try and be too clever, which, for me is always not something I'm built for. So in this instance, this model is literally, a single color scheme. That's nice and simple, but I'm going to give it a very gentle wash with some Starship filth just to pop some of the detail. But beyond that, I'm not going to do any chipping. I'm not going to do any mud splashes or anything like that. It is just going to be, a basic, neat build. And I've also just realized that there is a part here that I haven't painted, which I need to paint. Oh, honestly. Yeah, so it's kind of like, if I have a New Year's resolution this year, it's not to overthink things, and to be a little bit more pragmatic, I think is a good word. Because otherwise, as happened last year, is my modeling grinds to a halt, and I don't want to go through that process again. Plus, I do have some projects coming up which I'm especially looking forward to. I'm conscious of the fact that at some stage in the next few weeks, the chances are the new Tamiya Hellcat and KV2 will land on my doorstep. So, and with the requirement that can you get these built as quickly as possible? So, yes, we might have to, like I say, you just got to be a little bit more pragmatic and realize that what you're building it for, the reason why you're building it, is not the same reason other people are building theirs. So let's get a bit of blue tack. Jim Aldecott says, more of these live modelling sessions, please. They inspire me to get busy on my projects. Well, that's very kind of you, Jim. Actually, Drew and I used to, back in the old days, do you remember the old days when there was nothing? He said, trying not to reference Stuart Lee, but failing. So I'm just leaning around to try and grab something from the, there they are. Oops. We used to FaceTime each other, and literally we would be FaceTiming each other to get on with bits of projects that we were not looking forward to doing. So I think on one occasion we were FaceTiming each other, and we got on with things like masking, or I think I assembled some link by link tracks or something, and it just became a thing that we'd have a FaceTime session when we were not particularly looking forward to a tedious modeling task. So yeah, I think have us on as the background when you're in the workshop, or well, what we're talking about the other week about people saying, "Oh, I wish I could, I wish I had time to get on with some modeling." If you're watching this show, you've got time to get on with some modeling. So prop us up in the background. Trust me, we're nothing special to look at. Well, most of us anyway. And just have us in the background whilst you can get on with some modelling. I think we'll keep that like that. But yeah, we'll try and do some more, you know, actual modelling stuff on what is supposed to be a modelling channel. And then hopefully with once I get the Panasonic up and running, we should be doing some more interesting stuff as befits our name. So, okay. Oh, we do have some Pioneer tools on this that need to be hand painted. So I'll bear that in mind. Rob says, funnily enough, I've been working on the KP Alpha Jet during the show. What's that kit like, Rob? Because you know me, I do like the Alpha Jet. I just sadly have been unmoved by some of KP's kits in the last few years. I quite liked the Avia S119 they did, 199 rather. But everything else is just, I've just felt a bit kind of meh. So let us know how you're getting on with that one. We will get one. I mean, I will get hold of one of those Alpha Jet kits so that we can feature it on the show and talk about it and share it, because I think that's, you know, one has not a duty, but I want to know what it's like, and I want to form a first-hand opinion on it. But I'm certainly happy to listen to what other people have got to say about it as well. Oh, hang on. Oh, we've got a blob of something up there. We'll get rid of that. In fact, we've got a couple of, that's annoying, we've got a couple of blobs have appeared on the top of that roof there that weren't there earlier on, which is probably my, probably something that's got in the air here and has landed on them. But that's not a problem because we can get rid of that with a little bit of gentle sanding. So yeah, no pre-shading on this. I'm not doing anything like that. These vehicles tended to be quite immaculate, actually. So it is, like I said, it's just going to be a little bit of a wash to pop the detail. And that's it. More of kind of like a display model than a, you know, than an exploration of weathering techniques, which is, you know, that's a rabbit hole I go down, as I do like messing around with weathering techniques. And sometimes you get subjects that do lend themselves to it, but you can then end up getting so totally absorbed by that you've lost sight of the fact that you're supposed to be building something which is a display model for somebody else. So yeah, a bit more discipline in the new year. But I've got that 24 scale Italy Jeep to build, which I am looking forward to. And having just said about going down the rabbit hole of weathering techniques, it's a 24 scale Jeep. It's a big old model, and it does lend itself to some basic weathering, I think is the best way of putting it. So we will be doing little mud splashes and things like that. But I think it's a kind of like a project by project basis. This one doesn't have the requirement for that. Whereas I think the Jeep, there's a little bit more leeway. And I've also got an Italy Eurofighter, and I think I've got a Hawk to build as well. But I will clarify that with the mission brief in the new year. Goodness me, a little paint goes a long way. I think that's about it, folks. Yeah, that is it. So what we will do is give that colour cup, give the colour cup a quick wipe out to get rid of the excess paint that's in there. Then a little bit of thinner in there, and again we'll just swish that around. One very well used airbrush cleaning station, and we'll just blast some Tamiya lacquer thinner through there like so. Give the colour cup a quick clean out. I'll give it another clean out rather. I think we're going to need a little bit more. We're going to need a bigger boat. We're going to need a little bit more thinner than that. Goodness me, I hadn't realised I still got some of that Tamiya metallic gold on the outside. It shows you how tardy I've been in cleaning this airbrush. Right, that's welded on there. So we're going to get a cotton bud, and we're going to soak that. Goodness me, that is very reluctant to come off. Which is where we're going to go for plan B here, which is lol. There we go. That dealt with it. Goodness me, that lacquer really is, to me, a lacquer paint really is reluctant to come off like that. Right, there we go. I'll just give the brush a quick. This is only an intermediate clean, and we'll give it a proper, not a strip down, but just a proper kind of proper clean. But for now, all I need to do with this in order to get it ready for next time is blast some thinner through it, back flush it, blast it through. That's coming through. That's coming through clear. That's no problem whatsoever. Then take the needle out, give that a wipe. And just gently pop it back in until it's in position. Pop the rear housing back on. And then one last thing of lacquer thinner. Pop some in there like so. There you go, that's clear. And I'm going to pop it back in the airbrush station that I've got here with that lacquer thinner sitting in there. I know people are thinking, isn't that going to eat the seals and the rubber O-rings and everything? If it does, it's not something I've ever experienced. And I've still got some of that wretched lacquer thinner on the, sorry, that Tamiya metallic lacquer is still on the nozzle. Shows how well I cleaned it last time. Absolutely shocking. There we go. I got rid of it. So I can hear a strange kind of whirring, kind of faint sound like wind. Then suddenly realised it was the fans on my MacBook churning away. But anyway, I'm just going to leave that in the airbrush station, and that is ready for next time. And until then, there is our painted Bushmaster, or at least with the base colour on. I'm going to let that harden off overnight, go in there, get rid of those horrible little dust patches that have appeared there. Really annoying. So, other than that, that'll be it for now. What have we been running for? 2.5 hours. Goodness me. What were we thinking? Rob about the AlphaJet says, bit of a curate's egg. Okay. Short, but one scale for after the wing. Goodness me. And the instruction sheet is a complete bag of nails. Dan Wood says, if you leave the thinner in, doesn't it make the workshop stink? No, Dan, it doesn't. No, genuinely does not. It's only a tiny amount, and the room's well ventilated. No, it really doesn't. And Dan also says, this has made my masking session flyby my least favourite part of the build. Yeah, that's why I like building armoured cars. Really, armoured cars, no tracks to deal with, no canopies, no masking. Easiest models to build, quite frankly. Andy King says, yeah, not a fan of vinyl tires or tracks and kits. Actually, the ones are, in their defense, the ones that come with this Dragon Bushmaster, they're actually quite good, and they're quite a hard rubber as well. So what I'll probably do with these is give them a polish with one of the Infinity sanding sticks, and then just a wash with some sandy paint to pick out all that tread detail. But it's what's in the kit, so it's what you work with. And so I just making sure. I suddenly realized that where I've had some of this thinner bleed through the protective paper here is I don't want it to eat into my brand new workstation, cutting mat rather. So let's just carefully take all this off, and yeah, we're good. We're good. Incidentally, this cutting mat, I know I talked about it the other night. It's a huge, great thing. It's an A1 size. I know the grid pattern it's inches on one side, centimeters on the other. This is probably larger than modelers need for kind of doing measurements and things. But to be quite honest with you, I didn't get it for that. I got it so that I'd have a large work area that I could use for the camera, so I won't have to worry about framing it anyway. And Dan also says, coincidentally, I've just started the Matchbox Revell Humber. I think it's a Hunter. I was going to say Matchbox Hunter, due to lack of masking required. Do you know what, Dan? I built that kit 30 odd years ago, and it was one of those Matchbox armor kits that I always wanted to get as a kid, and it was never stocked locally. And when I did actually get around to building it, 1987, I enjoyed every second of it. It's a brilliant little kit. It really is. So I'm just going to play catch up on a couple more comments before we sign off for the evening. Just playing catch up. Blah 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 blah. Tim Campbell says, never used a Mac valve. 22 years with an H&S Evolution, but with a shiny PS 771 from Santa, I will have to learn how to use a Mac valve. They're just fine-tuning things. It's you know, you can kind of like, you set your base pressure on your compressor if you've got a pressure valve on the compressor, and then when it comes to doing stuff where you really have to finesse the airflow, so say if you're doing mottle or something, and so you've kind of like I know Drew talks about this because he does this more than me, but you over thin the paint, so you're letting the thinner do the heavy lifting when it comes to mottling, and then you're dialing down the pressure just to get it absolutely perfect. That's when the Mac valve comes into its own. In all honesty, I rarely do any finishes where I need that kind of ultra finesse, partly because sometimes I just don't build them because the opportunity never arises. Sometimes because I'm just too darn lazy that I don't want to have to kind of like go that far in terms of finishes. I know in terms of mottle, I probably do, but horses for courses. But yeah, I've used the ones that I've got here, and they're good to have. Let's put it that way. But other than that, that's pretty much it for tonight. We've managed to get some modelling done. Hurrah! So, barring another, well, we won't see you until the new year. They said a week ago, and then we've done about 2 or 3 shows since then. We definitely will see you in the new year. So that's it for now. I hope you're all having a good break, or if you're back to work, stay safe, stay out of trouble. We will be back. We will be back in the new year. Yeah, all right. We'll be back in the new year, apparently. So until then, we'll see you again, and a happy new year to everybody. Good night.